Senior Commander Zextal's talons clicked against the crystalline floor of the Galactic Council's observation deck, their reflection rippling in the polished surface below. The morning light of 3 suns filtered through the reinforced windows, casting an array of shadows across their armored scales. Far beneath, representatives of countless civilizations scurried about their daily routines, blissfully unaware of how fragile their existence truly was. Another petition for full membership status. Commander. The soft voice of Administrative Liaison Mixery barely registered through Zextal's audio filters, calibrated for the crushing atmospheric pressure of their homeworld. Indeed, the Centaurians this time. Zextal's jaw plates shifted in what passed for amusement among their kind. They claim their world is challenging because it experiences seasonal temperature variations of 50 degrees. Mixery's secondary breathing vents fluttered in shared mirth. Shall I prepare the standard rejection template? No. Zextal turned from the window, their massive frame casting a shadow over the smaller administrator. I will address this one personally. Perhaps it's time they understood the true meaning of survival. The commander activated their data display, projecting images of Krexthar Prime into the space between them. The holographic representation showed mountains that scraped the upper atmosphere, oceans of caustic acid that could dissolve standard starship hull plating, and gravity wells that would crush most species into paste. This is where we evolved, Mixery, where our ancestors fought through 16 mass extinction events to claim their place as survivors. Zextal's primary heart swelled with pride. Show me one other species in the Council that can claim such a legacy. The images shifted to display historical records. The first Krexthari space launches, where their ships had to generate thrust equivalent to small solar explosions just to achieve orbit. The early colonies, where they discovered that what they considered habitable was lethal to nearly every other known species. The eventual recognition by the Galactic Council, not as mere members, but as living proof that life could triumph over the most hostile conditions imaginable. The Centaurians will learn, as all others have, that their definition of challenging is what we consider a paradise world. Zextal began composing their response, talons dancing across the holographic interface. When their diplomats struggled to stand during last month's gravity orientation, I knew their petition was doomed. A priority alert flashed across their display, momentarily disrupting the composition. Zextal's neck frills extended in irritation, but the message classification demanded immediate attention. Their eyes widened as they processed the information. Commander. Mixery noticed the change in their superior's posture. Is something wrong? Border Patrol vessel Eternal Claw has encountered an unregistered ship. Zextal's voice carried an unfamiliar note of uncertainty. They're requesting verification of their sensor readings. Surely a routine matter for Border Command. The readings suggest the vessel originated from a world with environmental conditions that... Zextal paused, running the calculations again. That exceed even Krexthar Prime's hostility index. The statement hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. For centuries, the Krexthari had defined themselves as the ultimate survivors, the only sentient species to evolve on a world that should have made life impossible. Their entire cultural identity, their position in the Council, their very understanding of evolution itself, all rested on that fundamental assumption. There must be an error in their sensors, Mixery suggested, voice barely a whisper. Perhaps. Zextal's talons clenched, leaving slight marks in the crystalline floor. Or perhaps we're about to discover that the galaxy holds more surprises than even we imagined. They turned back to the window, watching the representatives below with new eyes. Signal the Eternal Claw. Tell them to escort our visitors to the nearest diplomatic station. I want to meet these humans, myself, in the space above them. Unaware of the momentous shift they had triggered in Krexthari society, a single Earth ship continued its journey through the stars, carrying with it proof that the galaxy's most infamous Deathworld survivors were not as alone as they had thought. Captain Vexthor of the Eternal Claw had patrolled the Razor asteroid field for 3 decades, but never had they witnessed flying like this. The unidentified vessel wove through the dense field of hypersonic rocks with impossible precision, each movement a deliberate dance between destruction and survival. Their targeting computer couldn't even calculate the trajectories fast enough to keep up. Status report. They commanded, their crew's agitation evident in the nervous clicking of their secondary claws against their stations. The vessel maintains its course through the densest section of the field. Captain, First Officer Kexley reported, their sensor crest fully extended in concentration. Their shield configuration is unusual. They're using minimal power, relying almost entirely on maneuvering. Vexthor's scales rippled with interest. Even Krextheri ships required heavy shielding to navigate the Razor field. Their natural understanding of threat assessment told them that any species capable of such precision deserved their full attention. Open a communication channel, they ordered. Let's see who's bold enough to dance through Death's Garden. The response came quickly, transmitted on standard galactic frequencies. The visual feed activated, and the bridge crew fell silent. The being on screen looked so fragile that several officers instinctively checked their atmospheric readings, unable to believe such a soft-skinned creature could survive space travel. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel, Stellar Pioneer," the alien announced, showing no sign of intimidation at the sight of the Krextheri's battle-scarred visages. "We apologize for any concern our passage may have caused. We're on a diplomatic mission and found this route to be the most efficient." Vexthor's translator processed the words, but their attention was fixed on the background readings. The human's internal temperature would have cooked most species alive. Their atmospheric mix contained corrosive elements, and their posture suggested comfort in what the sensors indicated was significantly higher gravity than standard. "Your ship's origin coordinates," Vexthor began carefully. "They can't be correct. Our readings suggest your homeworld would be Earth?" "Oh yes, it's quite a challenging place," Captain Chen replied with what the translator identified as an expression of amusement. "Though we find it quite comfortable. I understand your surprise. Most species we've met have similar reactions." The Krextheri captain accessed the preliminary scan data, their claws tightening on their command chair. Atmospheric pressure readings that would crush standard environment suits. Temperature variations that could freeze or boil blood in the same day cycle. Constant tectonic activity. Regular exposure to radiation levels that should prevent complex life from developing. Your species evolved there. The question escaped before Vexthor could maintain proper diplomatic protocol. "We did indeed. It shaped us in interesting ways." Captain Chen gestured to her ship's interior. "It's why we're comfortable with minimal shielding in the asteroid field. Earth's weather systems taught us to predict and adapt to rapidly changing conditions. When you grow up with hurricanes and tornadoes, space debris becomes just another dance partner." Vexthor exchanged glances with their first officer. The humans spoke of planetary conditions that rivaled their own homeworld's dangers, yet they had evolved without armored plates, without reinforced bone structures, without any of the obvious adaptations the Krextheri had developed. "Captain Chen," Vexthor decided, their secondary heart racing with the implications of this encounter, "we would be honored to escort you to our nearest diplomatic station. I believe there are many among our people who would be very interested in learning about your dance partners." The human's expression shifted to what the translator labeled as a smile. A gesture that would have been threatening among the Krextheri, but somehow conveyed warmth from the alien face. "We would be delighted, Captain Vexthor. Perhaps we could exchange notes on survival techniques. After all, it's not every day you meet someone else who calls a death world home." As the two ships altered course for the diplomatic station, Vexthor couldn't help but wonder if the galaxy was about to discover that strength came in more forms than they had ever imagined. The observation chamber of Krexthar Prime's diplomatic station hummed with anticipation as the human delegation prepared for their first surface excursion. Senior Commander Zextal watched through reinforced windows as the 5 humans performed final checks on their environmental suits, which seemed impossibly thin by Krex theory standards. "The gravity will crush them," muttered Security Chief Arksvan, their scales shifting in concern. "These suits cannot possibly provide adequate protection." The humans' chief scientist, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, overheard the comment through the translation field. He smiled, tapping the flexible material of his suit. "Actually, we're quite comfortable. Earth's gravity is only 15% lower than yours, though I must admit the extra pressure will take some getting used to." The Krex theory officials exchanged bewildered looks. Their own species had required centuries of genetic engineering to colonize worlds with even slightly higher gravity than their home planet. Yet these humans spoke of such adaptation as if discussing a minor inconvenience. The airlock cycled, and Krex Thar Prime's hostile atmosphere rushed in. The gathered Krex theory leaned forward, expecting the worst. Instead, they watched in amazement as the humans moved with deliberate but steady steps, quickly adjusting their gait to compensate for the increased gravitational pull. "Fascinating atmospheric composition," remarked Dr. Rodriguez, consulting a handheld device. "The sulfur content reminds me of areas near Earth's volcanic regions. Though your lightning storms are quite impressive, they make our electrical discharges look rather tame in comparison. You have regular electrical storms on Earth." Zextal's scientific curiosity overcame their diplomatic reserve. "Oh yes, particularly in our tornado alleys. We've recorded some strikes powerful enough to melt sand into glass. Though personally, I find our hurricanes more interesting. Massive storm systems that can span hundreds of kilometers and reshape coastlines." The human delegation moved toward the facility's exterior research area, their movements becoming more confident with each step. One of them, a geologist named Dr. Sarah Martinez, knelt to examine the crystalline formations that covered much of the planet's surface. "These formations," she noted, "they're similar to structures we find in our deep ocean volcanic vents. The pressure there can exceed 1,000 atmospheres, yet we found thriving ecosystems even in those conditions." Security Chief Arksvan's protective frills flared. "You explore such depths without external protection?" "Well, we need specialized equipment, of course," Dr. Martinez explained, collecting samples with practiced ease. "But humans have been exploring our ocean depths for centuries. It's actually easier than our mountain climbing expeditions, at least in the ocean. You don't have to worry about hypoxia while battling -40-degree temperatures." The humans continued their survey, seemingly oblivious to conditions that the Krex theory had long considered proof of their own evolutionary superiority. They documented the caustic rain with professional interest, compared notes on relative atmospheric toxicity levels, and even expressed enthusiasm about studying the local predator species. As the expedition concluded, Dr. Rodriguez shared their preliminary findings with the Krex Theory Scientific Council. The presentation included comparative data between Earth and Krex Thar Prime, data that challenged everything the Krex theory thought they knew about survival thresholds. "You see," Dr. Rodriguez explained, displaying a holographic comparison of the two worlds. "While your species evolved incredible natural defenses, we evolved to be adaptable. Earth's rapidly changing conditions meant that any single specialized adaptation might become a liability when the environment shifted. Instead, we developed problem-solving capabilities and the ability to create tools for any situation we encounter." Zextal absorbed this information in stunned silence. Their people had always equated survival with physical prowess, with the ability to withstand and overcome. Yet here was a species that had taken an entirely different path to survive even harsher conditions. "Perhaps," Zextal finally responded, their voice carrying a new note of respect, "it is time for both our species to redefine what it means to be survivors of a death world." Valtera's claws hovered over the laboratory's control panel as they watched their human colleague, Dr. Emma Chen, handle the crystalline growth medium with bare hands. Despite 2 months of collaboration, The young HFY scientists still couldn't suppress their protective instincts when they saw humans working without what they considered proper protection. "The expression on your face suggests you're worried again," Emma said without looking up, carefully adjusting the growth matrix. "Remember what happened with the magnetic storm last week?" Valterra's scales shifted in acknowledgement. When their primary containment system had failed during an unexpected magnetic surge, they had assumed the experiment was lost. Instead, Emma had quickly constructed a makeshift shield using materials from their emergency kit and parts of her personal communications device. "Your solution was unconventional," Valterra admitted, recording the latest data readings. "No HFY would have considered sacrificing personal equipment for an experiment." "That's because you evolved to survive through preservation," Emma replied, making a final adjustment. "We survived by learning to improvise. Different paths, same destination." A laboratory's ambient lighting dimmed as another magnetic storm approached the research facility. Through the reinforced windows, Valterra could see the characteristic purple streaks illuminating HFY Prime's toxic atmosphere. The sight that had terrified their first human visitors now barely warranted a glance from Emma. "Speaking of different paths," Emma continued, "the results from our comparative biology study came in. Your people might find them interesting." She projected a holographic display showing parallel evolutionary trees. On one side, the HFY line showed clear progression towards stronger natural defenses, thicker scales, redundant organs, enhanced filtering systems. The human line, by contrast, displayed subtle but crucial changes in brain structure, temperature regulation, and adaptive immunity. "While your ancestors were developing armor strong enough to withstand acid rain," Emma explained, "ours were developing sweat glands that let us regulate our temperature in any environment. While you gained natural toxin resistance, we developed immune systems that could recognize and adapt to new threats." Valterra studied the data with growing fascination. "But surely physical protection is more reliable than adaptation." A warning klaxon interrupted Emma's response. The magnetic storm had intensified beyond predicted levels, and the facility's power grid was fluctuating dangerously. Standard procedure called for an immediate evacuation to the shielded bunkers. The samples. Valterra's chest plates contracted in distress. 3 months of work, about to be destroyed. Emma was already moving, not toward the exit but deeper into the laboratory. "Not if we can stabilize the power supply. Quick, help me connect these backup units." "That's against evacuation protocols," Valterra protested, even as they found themselves following her lead. "Protocols are guidelines, not chains," Emma replied, rapidly rewiring the backup power systems. "Sometimes survival means knowing when to break the rules." Working together, they created an improvised power network that maintained the critical systems. Emma's understanding of electrical flow combined with Valterra's knowledge of their equipment allowed them to save not only their own experiments, but also those of 3 neighboring laboratories. As the storm raged outside, they monitored their jury-rigged system from a relatively safe corner of the lab. Valterra noticed how Emma had positioned herself between the strongest magnetic fluctuations and the sensitive equipment, using her body's natural electrical resistance as an additional shield. "I think I understand now," Valterra said quietly. "We HFY see our armor as our greatest strength, but it can also be our greatest limitation. We became so focused on withstanding our environment that we stopped learning to work with it." Emma smiled, checking the power readings. "And humans sometimes forget that adaptation isn't always about changing ourselves. Sometimes the strongest survival trait is knowing when to learn from others." The storm continued through the night, but the experiment survived, preserved by a combination of HFY engineering and human improvisation. It was a small victory, but one that would ripple through both societies, challenging long-held assumptions about the nature of strength and survival. The emergency council chamber of HFY Prime fell silent as the holographic display showed another colony world going dark. Senior Commander Zextel's scales had dulled from their usual lustrous sheen, a sign of the stress that had plagued them since the attacks began. 17 worlds in 14 days. Security Chief Arksvan reported, their voice grating with fatigue. The bioweapon adapts faster than we can develop countermeasures. Our natural armor, our greatest defense. They gestured to the patches of degraded scales visible on many council members. It's becoming our greatest vulnerability. Dr. Emma Chen and Valterra stood together at the analysis station, reviewing the latest data from the affected worlds. The human scientist's eyes narrowed as she studied the infection patterns. It's targeting specialized adaptations, Emma observed, highlighting specific genetic markers in the display. The more evolved the defense mechanism, the more devastating the attack. That's why the Crextheri are being hit so hard. Your highly specialized biological protection systems are giving the weapon more points of attack. The ultimate irony, Zextal commented bitterly. Our evolutionary pride has become our downfall. A priority communication cut through the tense atmosphere. The massive display shifted to show Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, now stationed on the human research vessel Stellar Pioneer, near the galactic core. We've completed our analysis of the bioweapon structure, he reported, his image occasionally distorting from radiation interference. It's not just attacking natural defenses, it's using them as a blueprint to evolve. The more sophisticated the target's adaptations, the more effective the weapon becomes. Valterra's sensor crests extended in sudden realization. That's why human casualties have been so low. Your adaptations are less specialized. Yes, Emma finished. Our immune systems are generalists, not specialists. We trade perfect defense against specific threats for moderate protection against many. The weapon can't use our adaptations as effectively because they're not optimized for any single environment. The chamber erupted in discussions, scales clicking against scales as council members debated this revelation. Zextal raised a talon for silence. You're saying human vulnerability might be your greatest defense. More than that, Emma replied, pulling up new data streams. Our immune systems don't just defend, they learn. Every exposure to the weapon gives us more data on how to fight it. We've already documented 47 distinct mutations in human antibody responses. Dr. Rodriguez's image nodded in agreement. We've started synthesizing these antibodies. They won't provide the same level of protection as your natural armor once did, but they might help your people survive until we can develop a permanent solution. The council chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. For generations, the Crextheri had seen their evolutionary path as the pinnacle of survival. Now, their only hope lay in embracing what they had once considered a weaker approach. The treatment will be painful, Emma warned, displaying the preliminary medical protocols. Your bodies will have to adapt quickly, without the benefit of evolutionary timescales. But it's survivable. Humans do it all the time. Zextal rose from their command position, their massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. You speak of pain to the survivors of a death world. We who evolved in acid rains and crushing gravity. Their scales shifted in what Emma had learned to recognize as grim amusement. The real challenge will be accepting that our understanding of survival was incomplete. The commander turned to address the council. We thought ourselves the ultimate survivors, but now we face a threat that turns our strength against us. Perhaps it's time to learn from those who took a different path. The humans have shown us that true survival isn't about being impervious to change. It's about being able to adapt to it. As the council began organizing the distribution of the human-derived treatments, Valterra noticed something remarkable. The Crextheri were standing straighter, their postures showing not defeat but determination. They had survived their death world by becoming stronger than their environment. Now they would survive by learning to change with it. The ancient halls of the Crextheri War Academy had never witnessed anything like this before, where once only the sound of armored scales clicking against stone had echoed. Now human boots stepped in rhythm alongside their Crextheri counterparts. Combat instructor Nexville watched from their elevated platform as the mixed species squad attempted the infamous Crucible course. Section 3 Obstacle approaching. Lieutenant Maya Santos called out to her team. Toxic geysers and gravity fluctuations. Krex Theory defenders, take point formation. The massive forms of 3 Krex Theory warriors moved forward, their reinforced scales providing cover for their smaller human teammates. But instead of simply bullying through as traditional doctrine demanded, they watched their human companions for signals. Geyser pattern recognized, one of the humans announced, their eyes scanning the eruption sequence. Similar to Yellowstone's Old Faithful. Mark your steps on my count. Nexvol's chest plates vibrated with interest. Traditional Krex Theory training would have relied on their natural armor to simply endure the toxic sprays. Instead, this hybrid team was learning to predict and avoid them entirely. The squad moved through the course like water flowing around rocks, each species complementing the other's strengths. Where high-gravity zones would have exhausted a pure human team, the Krex Theory provided support. When split-second decisions were needed, human intuition guided their path. Multiple hostiles detected. The course's automated system announced, deploying combat drones designed to simulate the core world's bioweapons. Lieutenant Santos immediately shifted her team's formation. Pattern Omega. Humans. Environmental analysis. Krex Theory, mobile defense platforms. The humans' enhanced sensor gear. Technology adapted from their experience with Earth's most unstable regions, quickly mapped the drone's attack vectors. The Krex Theory warriors positioned themselves not as mere shields, but as mobile cover that allowed their human teammates to maneuver and target weak points. Remarkable, Security Chief Arksven commented from beside Nexvol. 3 weeks ago, these warriors would have considered it beneath their dignity to serve as living shields. Now they understand it as tactical adaptation. And the humans, Nexvol added, they've learned to trust in Krex Theory's strength, rather than trying to outmaneuver everything. Both sides are evolving. The squad reached the course's final challenge, a chamber filled with swirling magnetic storms that disrupted both human technology and Krex Theory sensory crests. Traditional doctrine called this section impossible, designed to teach warriors to accept that some obstacles couldn't be overcome. Lieutenant Santos gathered her team in a protective formation. Remember the lab incident. Tech won't work here, and raw strength won't help. We adapt together. The humans linked arms with their Krex Theory partners, using their natural electromagnetic sensitivity to detect safe paths through the chaos. The Krex Theory, in turn, anchored their smaller teammates against the gravitational shears that would have torn them apart. Security Chief Arksvan's scales shifted in disbelief as the mixed squad emerged from the other side. They completed it. In all our history, no team has ever. Because we always train to overcome. Nexvol finished. They train to adapt. After the exercise, Lieutenant Santos and her Krex Theory second-in-command, Warrior Tekren, presented their analysis to the Academy's Leadership Council. The core worlders designed their weapon to exploit specialized evolution. Santos explained. But they've never faced species that could work together like this. They expect either perfect defense or perfect adaptation. We're showing them something new. Coordinated evolution. Tekran's chest plates expanded with pride. Our ancestors survived Krexthar Prime by becoming stronger than our environment. The humans survived Earth by learning to adapt to theirs. Together, we're becoming something greater than either approach alone. The Academy's High Commander rose from their throne of crystalline stone, their ancient scales bearing the marks of countless survival trials. Then let us show these core worlders what happens when the children of 2 death worlds unite. Begin full deployment of the mixed training programs. It's time to teach the galaxy a new meaning of survival. The bridge of the Krex Theory dreadnought evolutionary apex hummed with tension as the combined fleet approached the core world staging area. Senior Commander Zextal's scales gleamed under the battle lighting, their armor now modified with human-designed environmental interfaces. Core world vessels detected, reported Tactical Officer Min Chen, her hands dancing across the hybrid control system. 17 capital ships, multiple support craft. They're deploying their bioweapon platforms. Zextal exchanged glances with their human counterpart, Fleet Captain James Chen. The married human couple had specifically requested assignment to the Crexthery flagship, bringing their unique combination of tactical expertise and scientific knowledge. "The eternal dance begins again," Zextal announced, using the human phrase that had become popular among their warriors. "Launch the first wave. Let's show them what Deathworld survivors can do." The initial strike force consisted of modified human vessels, their smaller profiles and enhanced maneuverability, making them perfect for the precision work ahead. They darted through the enemy formation like Earth's hummingbirds, too quick and agile for the core worlders' targeting systems. "Bioweapon dispersal detected," Min reported, monitoring the sensor feeds. "But the new adaptive shielding is holding. Our immunity profiles are adapting faster than their weapon can evolve." The human ship's erratic flight patterns weren't random chaos. They were executing maneuvers based on their species' experience with Earth's most unpredictable weather phenomena. Each sharp turn and sudden acceleration drew the core worlders' fire away from the approaching Crexthery heavy cruisers. "Second wave. Commence attack," Captain Chen ordered. "Operation Thunderstorm is in effect." The Crexthery vessels emerged from their hiding positions in the stellar debris field, their massive forms now streamlined with human-inspired modifications. Where once they would have relied solely on brute force and armor, they now moved with calculated precision. "Multiple direct hits on enemy vessels," Min reported with satisfaction. "Their adaptive algorithms can't compensate for our combined tactics. They expected either pure strength or pure agility. Not both." A massive explosion lit up the battlefield as one of the core world carriers succumbed to the combined assault. The human ships had herded it directly into the Crexthery firing solutions, a hunting technique inspired by Earth's wolf packs. "The enemy is adapting," Zextal observed as the remaining core world ships began to form new defensive patterns. "They're learning, but so are we." Captain Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. "Then we show them what happens when you corner two Deathworld species. Execute Protocol Earthshaker." The battlefield transformed as the combined fleet initiated their masterstroke. Human ships darted between the Crexthery vessels in an intricate dance, their movements creating a complex gravitational web. The core worlders found themselves trapped in a three-dimensional cage of overlapping fields and firing solutions. Like the hunting patterns of Earth's orcas, Min explained to her Crexthery colleagues as they watched the maneuver unfold. They use coordination to create confusion, turning their prey's movements against them. The core world fleet's formation began to break apart as they struggled to counter tactics they had never encountered before. Their bioweapons, designed to target specific evolutionary advantages, proved useless against the combined fleet's constantly shifting defense patterns. "They expected us to fight like rivals," Zextal rumbled with satisfaction. "Instead, we fight like ecosystem partners." The battle reached its crescendo as the remaining core world ships attempted a desperate breakthrough. They found themselves caught between waves of human vessels, striking from impossible angles, and Crexthery dreadnoughts delivering devastating broadsides. Final enemy vessels attempting to retreat, Min reported as the last of the core world fleet turned to flee. "Their bioweapon platforms are neutralized." Captain Chen turned to Zextal, his expression grave but determined. "We've won this battle, but they'll be back with new weapons, new tactics." "Let them come," Zextal responded, their scales shifting in what had become recognizable as a smile. "We'll adapt, as we always have. But now we adapt together." The newly constructed Galactic Council chamber reflected the changes that had swept through interstellar society. Where once the architecture had celebrated only Crexthery resilience, now it incorporated elements of both species' homeworlds. Crystalline spires reminiscent of Earth's mountain ranges intertwined with the traditional armor-like structures of Crexthery design. Grand Elder Zextal, their scales bearing the honored marks of both battle and adaptation, stood before the assembled representatives of a transformed galaxy. Beside them, Dr. Emma Chen, now serving as Earth's senior ambassador, reviewed the final data streams from the core world containment operation. The bioweapon threat has been fully neutralized, Emma reported, her voice carrying across the chamber. More importantly, the combined research teams have developed protection protocols that can be shared with all member species. The core worlders' attempt to exploit our evolutionary differences has instead sparked a revolution in adaptive biology. Valtyra, recently appointed as head of the new Interspecies Scientific Coalition, stepped forward to present the findings. Their scales now bore integrated sensor patches, a visual symbol of how the Crex theory had learned to embrace change rather than resist it. When we first encountered humans, Valtyra began, we thought we understood what it meant to be survivors. We measured strength by our ability to withstand, to endure unchanged. They gestured to the holographic display, showing the merged technological and biological advances of both species. We were wrong. True strength lies not in refusing to change, but in choosing how to change. The display shifted to show footage from the new Death World Academy, where young representatives from various species trained together. A Crex theory instructor demonstrated how to predict environmental hazards using human-derived observation techniques, while a human teacher explained how to incorporate natural defensive adaptations into tactical planning. Our victory over the core worlders taught us something profound, Emma added, exchanging a knowing look with Zextal. Evolution isn't a race to develop the perfect defense. It's about developing the perfect ability to adapt. Zextal moved to the center of the chamber, their massive frame casting familiar shadows across the gathered assembly. When humans first arrived in our space, we thought we had found equals, another species that had survived impossible odds. Instead, we found teachers, students, and ultimately, partners. The chamber's atmospheric controls shifted subtly, creating conditions that would have once been uncomfortable for both species. Now, neither humans nor Crex theory showed any sign of discomfort, their bodies and technology working in harmony to adapt. Today, we established the Death World Cooperative, Zextal announced. Not because we are the only ones who can survive hostile environments, but because we have learned that survival takes many forms. Our academy will welcome all species, teaching them not just how to endure, but how to thrive through change. Emma stepped forward, standing shoulder to high waist with her Crex theory colleague. Earth has a saying, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. We now understand that strength comes not just from what we survive, but from how we choose to survive it. The assembled representatives watched as the final piece of the chamber's architecture locked into place, a merged symbol showing Earth's double helix intertwined with Crex Star Prime's crystalline structures. It represented not just two species' paths to survival, but a new understanding of evolution itself. Let the galaxy remember this, Zextal concluded, their voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. We thought we were the last survivors of Death Worlds until humans entered the picture. Instead, we discovered we were simply the last to understand that true survival means never stopping to evolve, adapt, and grow. Together, we will show the galaxy not just how to survive its challenges, but how to transform them into opportunities for advancement. As the chamber erupted in approval, Emma smiled at her Crex theory colleagues. They had all come so far from that first encounter in the asteroid field. Two species, shaped by the harshest worlds in the galaxy, had finally learned that the greatest strength comes not from standing alone against the universe, but from standing together to shape it.